Hi everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our very first live stream episode that we're going to be using this platform then to tell you all about, in this case, the Book of Judges. We had a little vote, and this was the book that people would like to focus on. And we're going to drive right in. We'll go from, obviously from the beginning to the end. This is where the Book of Judges begins, and this is the first inside sort of page of the comic proper. Now what I've done is it says the Book of Judges, and that's obviously the title of the book that we give it in English, but you might notice it has this legend underneath as well, which is after the death of Joshua. What I've done here is actually used the first few words of the Book of Judges and put it in this legend, and it's almost separate from the comic itself. It goes on, the next page after this is the map of Israel with so if I go down you'll be able to see actually it's going to be across and down. So here we go as the map. So we got the like Israel, Canaan, as it was in the time of Judges. You can see all the different tribes on there, and we'll see a more clearly defined map of the territories in a minute. But this map was designed to give the major places, some of the smaller ones, and the tribal sort of areas as well. But this was the first. This is the beginning of the book, and so the first line from the Book of Judges says, "After the death of Joshua, the children of Israel asked of God," and then it goes on. And in the English, it reads, the translation, after the death of Joshua, the children did this. But it becomes sort of confusing a bit later on, because in a few pages' time, Joshua dies, they say, and then Joshua died, and then this happened, and you're like, well, it said that before, so why is it saying that he's died twice? Like, what are we supposed to take from that? And actually, when you study the bits of the comic, the bits of the events that we're going to see in the comic here, you realise actually this is a sort of a recap of what's happening in the Book of Joshua, and to the extent that some of the verses are actually pulled straight across from Joshua, and the events that they're talking about happen while Joshua's still alive. So it's sort of confusing when you read it in the English. You think, oh, after the death of Joshua, the children of Israel asked of God, who should we go up against, Canaanites? And then they choose Judah, and you think, okay, but actually this is during the life of Joshua. And so then what are we supposed to do about the fact that it starts with the verse after the death of Joshua? And it was only made sort of clear to me when I discovered that that bit after the death of Joshua is essentially the name of the book. If you imagine that in ancient times that you have the scroll of the Book of Judges in this case, the way that you know what story it is inside, you don't. They didn't have the convention of like having a title, like the Book of Judges, and then leaving a little gap, and then writing the story like we might expect. All they did was start writing the story, and then you know what story it is by what the first few words of it are. And if you are a Christian and go to a church, you're very familiar with this potentially, because the name of the songs that you sing are not named after the choruses, which you might think they would be, but after the first line of the song. And so it's similar. And basically the whole scroll of the Book of Judges in that ancient time then would have been known as after the death of Joshua. And the parallel here is in Joshua, it starts with the words after the death of Moses. Now on that one, it does start with the death of Moses, but the point is that that's why you get it like after the death of Joshua, and then it goes through a few verses, and then Joshua dies, and you're like, oh, that's weird. So hopefully that's explained it to you. So I believe, and I believe the scholars that I've looked at are correct to point out that it's these words after the death of Joshua is actually basically the title of the book on the scroll. Now, here we're talking about some of the images. We've got straight away. It says that they ask of God like a question, and here you can see the tabernacle. It's a bit of sort of setting of the story, where, what time. So it's not a temple period, it's not Solomon, etc. It's the tabernacle. So the tabernacle we know lots about because there's several, a few at least chapters in Exodus which tell us exactly how it was made and how big it was, how long, how many silver pegs there are, and all this sort of stuff. And so actually, it's well documented, and there's plenty of projections of the tabernacle. And so I've drawn it as accurately as I could. You can see the tabernacle itself, and then the laver and the altar. You can see the little people there kneeling, and they're representing the different clans, because the point is they're asking the question, as it says, who should go up for us first against the Canaanites and fight against them, and then a clan is selected, so that we know that they're looking to select a clan. So the people that are kneeling outside the tabernacle are the tribal leaders of each of those clans. Now, the second panel, we've got the question being asked. They're inquiring of the Lord, and during this period, then they're inside the tabernacle, and he's at the incense altar. So you can see in front of the high priest is the incense altar, which is gold. It has horns on the top, and I've drawn this early one, this original incense altar with horns that are actually like cow, like ox horns or whatever, but later they become much more stylized, so that there's archaeological finds of altars of a similar nature, and they have the horns in the corners, but they're kind of they look like a castle's correlations. It's just like a flat top, and then the corner goes up like that, and that's the horns on the corner. But I've done it such that on the original one I've here that they've got it as actual like horns of gold. The high priest's vestment, which you can see in that image that we're talking about, and the next one, are again well documented in Exodus, several chapters about the colour of the garments, the materials, and then the ephah and the breastplate and the stones and everything. And if I put it over to the side a little bit more, you can see, let's try and move it up, here on this top one, it says, and God said, Judah shall go up. Behold, I have, and I've split what God's saying into the priest delivering, the high priest delivering the words. And he's saying, deliver the land into his hand. So God selects Judah. And now what's significant about their picture is that so the high priest, I've got the high priest holding up the breastplate with the precious stones. In the breastplate it has 12 precious stones. Each one represents one of the tribes of Israel, and Judah is the fourth one. So actually, you know, there are three across the top, and then it goes down one, and that's Judah that we're talking about, and it goes from right to left, obviously. Now, so you can actually see written on the gemstone the name. That's something that's not explicitly stated, I don't think, that the names are on there. I can't remember now, but it's on lots and lots of representations. They have it carved in. Perhaps it is. Anyway, but it is here, so you can see it's written. Now, you might have been expecting the Hebrew to be all, curvy and etc. But in actual fact, this is Paleo Hebrew. I was just having a little look at the time, and amazingly, I've already run out of time. I've already done one of the verses, but I'll just go on a little, I think, for this first one to get us going. The people, then you can see, are receiving the word, and what's important about the other thing that's important about this panel at the top with Judah is that the light is sort of shining onto the gemstone. So it's one of the ways that, like, historians and people who comment on the Book of Judges and stuff theorize that they divined what God was saying. So it's entirely possible that God spoke in an audible voice to the priest, but some other scholars think that it was divine through a different means, and they had the what they called Urim and Thummim or whatever, the little yes and no, like in the breastplate, little beads or stones or whatever they were that people don't know what they were. And that was a divination way of discerning by the priest God's will, and that's what God ordained. Here, the priest is talking to the leader of a tribe. He comes out and he says to the leader of Judah, the priest himself is Eleazar. So, because we know, this is the thing, when you drill down into the story in detail, you actually can know, the Book of Judges doesn't tell you who it is, but we know that in order to discern God's will, it must have been a priest involved, the high priest. We know the high priest at the time was Eleazar, so it's Eleazar. Then he's talking to the leader of the tribe of Judah. Now, we don't know 100% who the leader of Judah is, but I have done it that it's Caleb, because he's relevant to the next set of things. It seems as though he's the lead guy. It really couldn't be anybody else, because he's like 20 plus years older than every other person in his tribe, so it just basically has to be him. Next to him is the leader of Simeon. As you can see, he's a bit younger, and then Judah says he'll go, and Simeon, will Simeon come with him? And he does, and they join forces and they go to battle. Then here we have Simeon with him, and they fought, and the Canaanites, the Perizzites, into the hand. They struck down 10,000 men at Bezek, and they found Adonai Bezek there, so it means Lord Bezek, so like the prince, the Lord of Bezek. In this image, you can see some of the technology involved, the chariots and things like that. Here, the chariot can be seen. It's got scale mail on the side. The wheel is 4 spokes. I'm looking at the image on the top right of the screen. it has this leather sort of like frontage over the top of the, I think it's possibly scale mail all the way underneath, but they have the pattern on there, and then the horses are decoratively arrayed. I've got an image from an Osprey book here. Let me just see if I can show you. Make sure it's the right, no, make sure it's the right one. Yep, that one. This is an example from an Osprey book of these sorts of chariots. These are specifically Mitannian ones. So this is basically a neighbouring province at the time, but the next word, I don't think you can read it on yours, but they're called Marianu chariots, and they're like heavy armour chariots, and basically these are the ones that are used when they talking about the iron chariots and things like that of Sisera and everything. It's pointing to the fact that they've got these heavily armoured chariots, and this is an example. Another example, another Osprey book of a Canaanite warrior here, and another chariot, and you can see the square shield and the style. And the Canaanites of this period are actually reasonably well documented, because they show up quite often in the Egyptian tombs and things like that as the enemies of Egypt. And then okay, I'm gonna have to wrap up this video in a moment, I guess, but let's just see where's a good point to do so. I guess after we deal with Adonai-Bezek. The other thing you can see in the background behind that chariot at the top is the archers. They hold these bows, which they're not curved. They're made of two sections joined together in the middle, and when you pull them back, they make a kind of triangle shape, and that's an Egyptian style bow. The reason we've got a kind of an Egyptian style bow in the background is because actually at the period where Joshua kind of comes in and deposes a lot of the kings and things like that in Canaan. Canaan is actually like a province, state of like a realm of Egypt, a vassal state is what I meant to say. And so actually a lot of the troops and stuff that they have are Egyptian, and so they leave Egypt and they come to Canaan and they fight Canaanites, but they also fight Egyptians as well. So yeah, these shields, they've got distinctive shields. Next time perhaps I'll be able to show you some more examples of these shields. And but you'll notice that the Israelite people that are fighting have most of them have Egyptian style weapons. So they have an Egyptian style sword, Egyptian style shields, and this is because they've been fighting the Egyptians and stuff, and they took a load of the Egyptian stuff when they left, because in Exodus that is. And so actually, all their equipment, because they didn't have like their own specific military, because they didn't have a place, they were just nomads for 40 years and stuff. So it's all sort of stolen, repurposed weaponry. We'll conclude with this line, and so this is them attacking him. The narration just tells us that they struck the Canaanites, but Adonai-Bezek fled. So here he's in his chariot, he's turning the chariot around to try and flee, but you can see from the little silhouettes that he's all like surrounded. Let's make sure this is actually on your screen properly. And come on, like that. That's it. And then so he's surrounded, and then he gets captured basically. So he's in this image on the left of the screen. He's trying to flee. His charioteer bloke has been stabbed with a spear, and he's trying to flee. Then he's captured. You can see this is not the battle. It's night time, so you can tell that some time has passed. And he's kneeling. He's been forced to kneel. He's got his helmet is off. He's surrendered. So the idea of the picture is to show you that. And then here Caleb says, cut off his thumbs and his big toes. And so this was apparently the treatment that the kings gave one another when they defeated them. It was a punishment, but it was also, the idea was so that you capture the king and he's still alive, but you take the thumb and the toes so that they can't fight, so they can't hold a sword because they haven't got a thumb. If they don't have a big toe, they can't stand up. They can kind of hobble around, but they can't actually fight because you need your big toe to change direction and things like that. So, but then he gets his this done to him, and it says 70 kings having thumbs and big toes cut off, scavenged under my table, as I have done, so God has done to me. So Adonai Bezek is reflecting upon his punishment, and we get to see a bloody scene. They brought him to Jerusalem and he died there. That's where we'll pick up next time. I hope you've enjoyed this little video. We've got more videos like this on our Patreon page, and we'll definitely get a link on the description. See you next time.